Welcome to Agents Growth Academy. I am your headmaster, Jim Schubert. I hope you are ready to grow big or go home. Got a fantastic guest for you today. But first, if you have not already, if you're listening to this, especially on Apple Podcasts, which used to be called iTunes, please go give us a rating, something good if you would, and let us know how we're doing. It's what really helps to spread the word about the show. And I know that there's a lot of people out there who would love to hear what a lot of the guests that I'm having on have to say. The other thing I'll mention is if you haven't already, go to agentsgrowthacademy.com/sales. And that's where you can pick up this download that I've created about how to give back first before you receive anything in the sales process. Took some great ideas from people that are much smarter than myself and put it into a little cheat sheet for you to give back in the sales process first. But today, I've got a fantastic guest. His name is Josh Gurley. He has 11 years experience in the industry, a UGA risk management and insurance graduate. He's a CIC, a CWCA, and he validated and became a partner in his agency in 3 years. This guy is no joke. He's on the IIAG Commercial Lines Committee. He's a former professional musician. Got to ask him about that. He's also married to Ashley for 10 years. He's got 2 kids named James and Kellyanne, who are 6 and 3. They live in Perry, Georgia, God's country. And he enjoys guitar, Peloton, which I think you might see behind him, one wheel, and they travel as a couple as often as they can so that they can travel as a family. It's a written goal for him to take off 20 days per year. Ladies and gentlemen, Josh Gurley. How's it going, Josh?
Yeah, it is going good, Jim. It is good to be with you, and great job at reading the bio, my friend.
Thanks. You know, I went to school to be an English teacher and something just stuck, I guess.
I hear you, man. Well, you said something right off the bat that I loved, and you talked, and I call it being a go-giver, a
Yeah.
go-giver.
Ooh, I like
I
that.
think one thing that I've always thought in sales is it's so odd to me that you see a lot of producers out there. They say, "Hey, listen, you got these 5 problems with your insurance program, and I'm going to solve 2 of them for you right now. But you got 3 more, and here's what you got to do to get the 3 more solved. You just sign this BOR right here, and I'm going to take care of these for you." And and I have always operated under the same thing to say, I'm going to be a go-giver. I'm going to give you all the information, and I want you to be able to make an informed decision about your own company. And so I put it all out there. I don't hide anything. I don't have anything, that I'm holding back and say, well, maybe I'm not a very good salesman. I have no idea, but I just don't believe in doing that. So kudos to you for thinking the same thing because that's exactly the way that I operate.
Well, thanks, man. Like I said in the intro, I mean, there some folks that I've had on the show and other people that I talked to in our industry gave me some great ideas, and I just really wanted to share it with folks so that they could use it for themselves. But I love that go giver. That's a great term. I'm gonna write that down. So you got to tell me about the professional musician before we dig into things here. What's that? What happened there?
Well, so I think it was about 3 years after I graduated from college, I traveled around the country in a Christian rock and roll band,
Nice.
and we went, golly, from Florida to, as far west as Oklahoma, really, and everywhere in between. I mean, we were on the road about 200 days a year, and we were actually on a smaller record label, which I don't think exists anymore. It was called Centricity Music. Maybe they do exist. I'm not sure, but anyway, yeah. So we had some songs out there, and Rick Warren, the guy that wrote The Purpose Driven Life,
Yeah,
he actually put out a compilation CD, and one of the songs from the little group that I was in made it to the Rick Warren compilation CD. So
that's awesome.
it was a good run, but actually, so when I met my now wife is when I said, okay, I gotta start considering doing something a little bit different. So from
Yeah.
'07 to like 2011 or 2010, I was in the music industry, and then once I met her and we got serious, I decided I was gonna actually use this degree in insurance that I got from University of Georgia.
That's awesome. What was the name of the band?
So I played with this guy. His name is Matt Papa. He's still out there doing his thing.
Yeah.
He was from Gainesville, Georgia,
Okay.
and so we were just involved in a lot of different, a lot of different events that a lot of people would know if you grew up, in the kind of in the South and went to youth camp during the summer.
Yeah.
We were the band at a lot of different youth camps, and it was a really good experience. We got to help a lot of people, and I think we had a good message. So yeah, it was good, man. It was good. Really
That's
enjoyed
awesome.
that time.
That's awesome. And I love that you're following your passion, your dream with that, and not afraid to to be part of something bigger spiritually too. That's a an honorable thing, and I think something that I wish I'd see more people do. Speaking of following dreams, before the show, we talked about like if you were to make this interview a masterclass, what would it be? You said never underestimate the power of a dream. Was there like an epiphany for you or a pivotal moment in your life where that became important or a reality or something that that really came to the forefront for you?
So while we're on the spiritual talk, I'll say this. So Andy Stanley, he says that there's five things that grow your faith, and one of those things is pivotal circumstances. So I don't know if you got that from Andy or not, but that's one of the things that he says. For me, I mean, it was just really, so my dad passed away in 2014, and at the time I was working for an insurance company, and I was always very conservative. I wasn't a person that really wanted to put myself out there that much. I had worked in an agency before, it just the agency life didn't seem like something I was that interested in, and we were just going through a bunch of boxes and stuff that my dad had, and there was this framed painting in there, and it was this big hot air balloon, and and then written around the hot air balloon it said, no matter how impossible it may seem, never underestimate the power of a dream.
Hmm.
And so when I read that, it just stuck with me, and it just made me think, you know what, maybe for me there's more out there. Maybe for me, like, there's more than being an insurance company rep. And I'm not saying that's a bad job. I think like it's one of the best
Sure.
jobs in all of insurance,
Yeah.
right? You get a car, you get to drive around. It's you get an expense
A
account.
budget.
Like
Yeah.
like it's a good gig. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything bad about it, but I realized that for me to move forward in my career, I was going to have to move. And I knew that most of the people that I knew that were in regional offices in Atlanta, because almost every insurance company has an office there, a lot of them are not homegrown Georgia people. A lot of
Yeah.
them were people that moved around to various places, and they got off. They would get the assistant VP of whatever, but then to do that, they had to move to Richmond, Virginia, and then they moved to Charlotte or wherever. And so for me, I was kind of like, I feel like I've maxed out my opportunity. There's really nowhere else for me to go. And I said, hey, I'm going to get in the agency business. And so I went to work with, it used to be Hunt Miller. I tell people our agencies, the agency formerly known as Hunt Miller.
Okay.
And so we changed our name to HM Advisors just to kind of freshen it up a little bit. We didn't want to
Yeah.
abandon our roots completely.
Yeah.
So we freshened it up a couple years back, and really, I got into the business, and I was sitting there at my desk on the first day, and I said, "What in the world have I done?" I was like, I, I'm getting no emails. I have no clients. Like nobody, nobody wants to talk to me, and I realized that I've got to make this thing happen. And so now here I am 7 years later, and I'm 20 something thousand emails, right, over the course of all this time because I'm not that organized, so I don't delete any emails. I have them
Ah,
all going. I have them all going back forever.
me too.
I'm not one of the I'm not one of these zero inbox guys.
Yeah,
I'll
don't
just
tell
go
my
ahead and tell
attorney
you.
that. They probably only want to see 7 years worth.
Yeah, yeah, and don't tell the E&O underwriter. They probably don't
Right.
like that either.
Yeah.
But 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 yeah, man, I just got into this, and I have some really good people that I'm involved with. My two business partners. Um, I don't know, they're just really good people, and they're people that I would be friends with. In fact, I was friends with them before there was any kind of business relationship, and so we work really well together. We got a great staff, and so I've just been really blessed. But I would say it wasn't always that way. I mean, before we were talking about how we've really grown a lot over the years.
Yeah.
We had to work really hard to do that, and and get creative, and so I think we did. And now I look back and kind of like you, man. I just love coming on these podcasts and sharing with people some things that we've done to create some success in many different areas, not just, business, but, the freedom that I think this business gives you in life has just been really, really good to our family. And so I always, want to share and help people as much as I can.
I love it. So for some of the younger or newly inaugurated, we'll call them agents who might be listening to this show right now, who are at the very beginning of their career and trying to figure out, okay, is this where I want to be? What kind of things would you share with them that have worked for you over the years? Some of those successful things that you've put into place that maybe they don't have to repeat the same mistakes or they could glean from your experience.
Man, I think the most important thing is being consistent and showing up every single
Mm,
day.
yeah.
I mean, I don't think that there's any secret. In fact, I'll tell you a funny story. So my son, he's 6 years old. I picked him up from school. There's like I told you before we started, there's this COVID outbreak, and everybody's like getting sent home and all this stuff
Yeah.
at school. But like, so my son, we were in the car, and it was like somebody was talking about how all you have to do is like, pump some gas and you get money back, right? And I make $300 a month by pumping gas or whatever. And my son was like, "Dad, you should do that." And and I said, "Buddy, I want to teach you a life lesson right now." And I said, "Things that sound too good to be true, they normally are too good to be true." And And he was like, and you could just see him back there, like he just kind of went quiet for a minute, and
Yeah.
you could see him just processing, like, "Dad, what are you trying to say?" And I was like, "Son, if somebody tells you that something's really, really easy, especially when it comes to making income, it's usually too good to be true." And
Yeah.
so my son was like, okay, yeah, 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 I get what you're saying. So I would tell people the same thing when it comes to the insurance business.
Yeah.
Like, if you think that you're going to just step in on the first day and everybody is going to love you and just beg you to work on their business, I mean, that's just not the way that it works.
No.
And so for me, it's just making those little deposits every day.
Mm,
And I can tell you that, I have clients that it's taken me 5 years to get. And it's just because I've made consistent deposits over the years. And and it seems like somebody will have that one issue. They'll have that one bad audit. They'll have that one certificate that's just something's not going their way, and they call you up, or maybe it's like a piece of insurance that they don't have that somebody's asking them to have.
yeah.
And like they'll have a ransomware attack, but they don't have a cyber policy, and they'll say, "Man, I had this ransomware attack and something happened, and look, you've been calling me all these years. Can you help me with this thing?" And then it's just like that that one little domino with that
Right.
relationship and making those deposits, I think is a big thing. And then this might sound cliche, but relationships,
Yeah.
just continuing to grow and build relationships with people.
Absolutely. I'd love for you to dig in on the deposits concept for us just a little bit for those who might not be familiar. I know I've personally heard people talk before about the emotional bank account, so to speak, where you're giving, you kind of like we were talking at the beginning, you're giving first, you're helping someone out, or you're doing something for them emotionally that they're thankful for. It's something that basically makes them say thank you to you that you've just deposited in their emotional bank account. And if you try to make a withdrawal before you make too many deposits, just like in real life, what happens,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
You overdraw,
you bounce your
right?
check. Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're talking about? And if so, or what kind of deposits? Give us some examples.
Yeah, I mean, so I think I call it the trust bank, all right?
Okay.
And I think that everybody is either making a deposit or a withdrawal from the trust bank. And and my team has looked at me a little crazy when I've said this to them, but I believe this. There's no such thing as a neutral transaction. No
Hmm.
such thing. Every transaction that you have with a prospect or with a client, is either making a deposit or a withdrawal. There's
Hmm.
no such thing as being neutral. I mean, because every time you send that certificate out for them
Mm-hmm.
on time, you're building trust, building trust, building trust.
Mm.
But then when you miss that deadline one time, they say, "Man, that's odd. That's
Yeah.
never happened before." And then they give you a pass, but then the next time they ask you for a certificate, maybe there's that one little thing in the back of their mind that says, "Well, they were late on the last one,"
Yeah.
right? And so you have to continually keep putting, um, deposits in that trust bank. But I think from like a prospecting standpoint, there's a huge difference in being professional and then just being a pest.
Yeah.
And so I think the term that I've used for it is being professionally persistent.
Mm.
That's
I
what I
like
try
that.
to do. I try to be professionally persistent. For example,
Yeah.
there's one of these people that I talk to a couple times a year, and every time I talk to this guy, he says, "I want you to call me in 6 months." And I'll say, "Well, what if I call you on June the 10th?" And then so June the 10th rolls around, I put them in the CRM. And that's another thing I would recommend everybody to have is a CRM because you can't keep up with this stuff on your own. Like nobody's good enough. I used to think I was good enough, but I'm not good enough. I got too much in my head now, and I don't know that I have a ton of room left for anything else. But like, I put it down, I write it down in the CRM, and I call them, and I would just say, "Hey Jim, it's June 10th. This is the day you told me to call you." And this guy every single time he says, "Well, hey, call me in 6 more months." And we've been playing this "call me in 6 months" game for about 4 years now. But you
Yeah.
know what? You know what? He started saying the last time I called him on the phone, he said, "You," he said, "I gave you a specific date to call me, and you called me on that date."
Yeah.
See, prospects, they don't forget. I mean,
Mm.
I don't even like the word prospect. I like the word potential future client. And
A
so
PFC.
potential, yeah, but they're smart. These
Yeah.
people are smart,
Yeah.
right? They're not insurance people, but they're smart. And so, you just see all these different people. They're selling them all kind of stuff, and nobody follows up like they should.
And that's
And
interesting
so,
because when you do that, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no,
when by doing that, you are not just telling them, but you are showing them that you are dependable. They can depend on you to do exactly what you said, and you haven't even asked them for the first thing yet. That's that's brilliant. It's beautiful.
well, and I think like, you know, I read this book one time that said basically if you want it all and you want it all right now, you're not going to have either one.
Yeah.
And and it's true. I mean, every now and then somebody's going to hit a GameStop deal or a AMC deal or whatever, and stuff's going to blow up. But like for the most part, I mean, it's just consistent deposits over time. I love I was listening to one of David Carothers' podcast, which is actually how we got connected.
Right.
Was through David, and
Yeah.
he was interviewing this guy, and he said, but basically he used a term. He said it's the 20-year overnight success, the 20-year overnight success, and that's true. That's true. And another thing I would say to somebody that was just starting out would be like, don't apologize for like the grind. And then once you, I think, ascend and like become successful, whatever your, measure of that is, like, don't apologize for that either. But
Yeah.
because there's a lot of people that they were not with you when you were waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning to drive somewhere to meet with somebody. Like they were not with you when um, you were up at 10 o'clock at night doing insurance applications.
Right.
They were not with you when you were on the phone. And so I just think that like you, you know it's just being consistent. And then one day you wake up and you have this loyal following of clients.
Yeah.
It's the coolest thing.
That's
And you
awesome.
probably experienced that, Jim, right?
Yeah, and I haven't produced in a few years now, but when I was doing it, you're right, it's the long game, and now I'm on the other side of it more frequently as vendors are contacting me as the agency owner to sell me anything under the sun. And it's interesting because I can think of a handful of people right now that are in that rotation of, hey, listen, this is going to be a Q2 project for us. And then they'll
Mhm.
contact me in Q2. Hey, just reaching back out. Thanks so much. Still interested, just not the right time. That was something somebody taught me recently. Instead of saying no, just say not right now, because it's a much more polite, but also accurate, right? If you have some interest, obviously, if there's something that somebody's trying to sell you that is, you have absolutely no interest in, fair, say no. But more often than not, I think it's not right now. And I am finding, being on the other side of it, that now those people who are the most consistent about following through, just like you're talking about, are the ones that I already, and I didn't even think about this until I'm saying it right now, I already have gained a level of respect for them. And I haven't even met them in person, maybe, or we haven't, spent more than 5 minutes talking or emailing. And I already have more respect for them than I would the majority of anybody else, all the other people who would be contacting me trying to sell me the same product. So it's the long game for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it like I just call it cutting through all the noise. I
Yeah.
mean, because you think about all the people that call you. I mean, people call you trying to sell you everything. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
you could spend every dime of revenue in your whole company on technology if you wanted to.
Yeah.
I mean, and everybody's little piece of tech, it does that like one little thing that somebody else just doesn't do or whatever. And
Yeah.
but all these business people, they're getting the same calls.
Sure.
They're getting the same calls, and insurance is just one of those things that they're getting called on for. And so I just think you have to, be self-aware enough to say like, okay. I mean, there are some people that really love to talk about insurance, I suppose, but most of the people, it's just a means to an end for them. The
Yeah.
bank tells them they got to have it for their building or for their whatever their piece of equipment they own, or the general contractor tells them they got to have it to get on the job site. I mean, there's a lot of people. I can't recall ever thinking to myself like, unless it's been like a really large, complex client. Man, these people are really interested in what I have to say. I mean, most of the time, like people's eyes are kind of glazing over.
I want to touch on something real quick before we get into the rapid fire round. Something that kind of comes out of this theme of never underestimate the power of a dream that you were talking about at the beginning. Have you read the book Infinite and Finite? I think it's Finite and Infinite Games.
I have not. No.
I think it's James Carse. I just started listening to it on Audible. That's how I preview most books before I buy the hard copy. But
Hmm.
fascinating concept, and thank you, Tony Kanyas, for sharing that with me. It's a the concept is, kind of like when you said at the beginning, you had this epiphany moment of like, maybe there's something more out there for me than what I've got here. And the concept of finite and infinite games is, are you playing games that you're going to win just in this lifetime? Or are you focused on something much bigger that won't be won during your lifetime? Something that will affect people long after you're gone. And I think for those who might either be new in the industry, maybe questioning what they're doing in the industry, it's something to think about. You know, are you aligned with an agency or a company that has a bigger picture mentality, something that they're not selling insurance products, is what I'm saying. Their goal, like our mission, that we've developed, that we really uncovered, is helping people thrive by providing peace of mind. And it's that thriving piece, right? That if we free up their time and give them the peace of mind that they don't have to worry about the financial implications of everything they're trying to work on or build or whatever, then they can free up their time to maybe serve more people or do what they do best, or provide their God-given talents to the rest of the world. Man, we're doing something a lot bigger than just selling insurance. Um, I don't know. I didn't know if you read that book, if you heard that concept, but it just reminded me of that when you kind of asked yourself that question at the beginning, like, is there something bigger, better out there for me?
Well, I've never read that book, but I mean, I think the main thing for me was just like, looking around and thinking, hey, I can do this. Like I can figure this out.
Yeah,
And I just knew that if I wanted to do for my family what I really wanted to do for my family, I wasn't going to be able to do it doing what I was doing.
yeah,
And so I don't think it was like you know, it's one of those things, I think, Jim, like when you start out in this business, you have no idea what it's going to become.
sure,
And you have no idea that the stakes are going to get a lot bigger. I
yeah,
mean, there's so many people, and like we were talking about, I was talking about some friends with you before we got on, but
yeah,
like there's just so many people, man, that I think you get into this and then you don't really realize that there's like this whole thing of like, you know, equity and competition and just it's cutthroat out there.
yeah,
And and you have to really, I think, be conscious to not let like it change you. Because, and when I say change you, I mean like jade you. Because
yeah,
sometimes, I was told early on that you shouldn't get into this business if you're not okay with your best friend firing you for $1 a month. And and it's true. It's true. I mean, I've had people that have fired me for $1 a month, and I've had people that have stuck with me over $20,000 a year.
sure,
And so I just think that I don't know. I just think that's one of those things you gotta be ready for.
yeah, absolutely. Let's get into the rapid fire round, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. What's one piece of technology or software that you can't live without?
So this one's gonna sound a little cliche. It's not very trendy or on brand or whatever. But I just my iPhone. Everything that I do, it rolls through the phone. I mean, I've got all my apps on there. I have, you know, probably 10 different video conferencing apps, and
Yeah,
I got all my passwords are on there. I mean, if it's something that I couldn't live with, I literally, if my iPhone died and it wasn't backed up to the cloud, I don't know what I would do.
yeah,
I mean, I have no idea. I would be without hundreds of passwords. I wouldn't be able to log into anything. I don't know. It would be tough without the iPhone.
yeah. Have you ever heard of LastPass?
Yep, I do have LastPass,
Yeah,
but still, it would
still.
be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love the iPhone. I was an early adopter.
Yeah.
I got the very first iPhone that ever came out.
Oh yeah. I remember that.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
Awesome. Are there any one particular app that like you absolutely can't live without besides like email or texting?
Oh man, that is a good question. I would say probably ESPN because I'm always checking sports, and I would say ESPN app for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. You went to a school who's doing some big things right now, by the way, in the world of sports.
Well, if I wasn't on this podcast right now, I would have on a big UGA T-shirt, but I figured I could wear red and black in
Yeah, it
just a
would get the
regular.
same message across.
Yeah, it would
You
get the same
totally could
message
have, man.
across.
It would have been
Yeah.
absolutely acceptable. What about one book that you love or you're reading, something you want to share with others?
So I have been reading. I'm just two books, two books. So
Yeah.
the first one is I've been reading Traction. Um, it's EOS operating system book,
Yep.
entrepreneurial operating system, and I've just been learning a ton through that. I'm probably about halfway through the book. I've been trying to digest it about 10 pages at a time a day.
Yeah.
That's my goal anyhow. And I started out taking a bunch of notes and then I realized like it's going to take me 2 years to read this if I keep taking notes at this rate.
It's chunky.
So yeah, so I've been reading about 10 pages a day in Traction. And then the other book that I would recommend is a book by Darren Hardy. It's really it's kind of a planner. I wouldn't call it a planner, but it's about 90 pages of just kind of reviewing last year and talking about goals and even changing the way you think about setting goals.
Yeah.
And to me, that's been the biggest thing. But it's called Living Your Best Year Ever by Darren Hardy. Just one little tidbit from that book is when I was setting my goals for this year, just to give you an example, you know, some people will say, my goal is to lose 20 pounds. Okay. But, but the way that he phrases to set your goals, it says, I am going to be at my ideal weight.
Hmm.
Right. And it just kind of changes instead of a negative thing like, oh, I've got to lose 20 pounds this year.
Yeah.
That's my goal. It's like, no, I am going to get to my ideal weight of X or
Yeah.
whatever. And so it's just really helped me, I think, like to change the way that I think about the day and the things that I'm trying to accomplish. So Darren Hardy, Living Your Best Year Ever. It's a great book.
Love it. That's awesome. You and I were talking before that you sometimes will drive 3 hours to go see a client or what'd you call it? A future client, a prospective future client?
Yeah,
Um,
potential future client. Yeah.
potential future client. What do you listen to Audible? Do you use Audible to listen to any books?
So most of the time, I would love to come on here and act like I'm some kind of beast of a learner. I would say I'm learning to be a learner. I've
Yeah,
just mostly been a put my head down and grind kind of guy,
yeah,
most of the time I'm listening to music or I'm listening to a podcast or something like that is
yeah.
normally what I'm doing when I'm on the road.
Little Agents Growth
So
Academy, I'm sure. Yeah.
you know what? I was listening, believe it or not, this is not a Uh, this is true. All right. So I was driving down the road with my wife, and I had gotten your LinkedIn message about coming on the show.
Yeah.
And so I told my wife, I was like, "Hey, listen," I said, "I know who Jim is. Like I've seen him. He's been pretty active on LinkedIn over the years." I said, "He asked me on his podcast. Do you care if I give it like a listen?" And so she was like, "Oh my God, an insurance podcast." I said, "Just
She's like, I'm
give
gonna
me
go to
like,
sleep.
yeah, yeah." So she was like, just give me, I was like, just give me like 5 minutes. So I listened to the podcast and my wife was like, she said, this guy's a great interviewer.
Aw.
You should really do, no, she really did. She said, this guy's a great interviewer. And, my wife she went to journalism school at the University of Georgia.
Oh yeah.
and yeah, so she graduated from Grady, and uh, and so anyway, she thought that she did a good job interviewing, and she said you should definitely do this one. This will be a great one. I said
Oh.
okay. And so you know whatever, a compliment from my wife, all right, and she's fairly popular, all right, on the internet. If you want to see some pictures of cute kids and like smoothies and food, then you can go to Gurley's Good Stuff on Instagram. Follow my
Girly's
wife.
good stuff on Instagram. Thanks,
Yeah,
Ashley. Appreciate it. I never met you before, but I really appreciate that. Well,
yeah.
if you ever
Right.
do want to try out Audible, this is for you and all the guests. You can get a free book to listen to if you go to audibletrial.com/grow big. And I think it's like 1 month and a free book. Pretty cool.
Cool.
I got looped into that a few years ago, and sometimes I'll let credits pile up where they charge every month. But man, I've been blowing through them recently. Listening to a lot of great books. But please tell Ashley thank you. That's so sweet. I appreciate
I will definitely do that. As soon as we get
it.
off, I'll do that.
That's awesome. Um, and then do you have a story about a time when you or somebody else helped a client or a prospect, and what was that like?
So I could tell a lot of stories. And my personal book of business is like 99.9% commercial lines.
Yeah,
Now our agency is about 70, it's probably 70% or a little better commercial lines.
yeah.
Um, and so that's mostly what I deal with. But I'll tell the story because I want to give my mother a shout out too. I've never given my mother a shout out on a podcast.
Oh,
So I'm going to give her a shout out today. And I'm going to give, if I can say this on your podcast, I don't know if I can or not, but I'm going to give Cincinnati Insurance Company
sure. Why
a
not?
shout out.
Yeah,
The Cincinnati Insurance Company. Make
very
sure I
right.
get it right. So my mother was in a not at fault accident. All right, and so she was hit. She's the 0.01% personal lines that I have in my book. But she was hit by somebody, and thankfully, she was okay. She had a couple burns from the airbag,
Mm,
but it totaled out her car.
yeah,
And so the person that hit her was driving with minimum limits, and they had only $25,000 for property damage.
yeah,
And so my mom calls me up, and she's just like, "Hey, um, this the adjuster from the big insurance company, direct writer said that they're not going to have enough money to cover this claim, and they're just kind of jerking me around or
mm,
whatever." And so I just called up Trent, my adjuster at Cincinnati, and I just said, "Trent, somebody hit my mom. Take care of it." And he did. He did. He took care of it. And he walked her through everything. He called the rental car company. Like he basically did my job for me, I think. But he did everything. He did everything for her and got everything taken care of and paid and he just did a really good job of doing what I think we're called to do. And that is just be somebody's friend on their worst day.
yeah,
And most people, they have one car wreck or two car wrecks their whole life, and they don't know what to do when it happens.
sure.
And that was just a situation where it felt real to me that that he stepped up and helped her, and it just meant a lot to me that they did such a good job of taking care of her. So I don't know. It's not a glory story of something great that I did. Maybe we'll save that for another day. But I think it's relevant for sure.
But that was the day that Trent became your mom's favorite son.
That's true. That's true.
Oh, I'm sorry. No,
That's
you
true.
did. You did.
Well, I can tell you, she was talking about him. I was at actually. She lives on Lake Hartwell, and so we went up there actually this weekend, to see her, and she was talking about it. She said Trent was just so nice and so patient and so. And I was like, just like your son, right? She's like, my son is not that. He's not that patient. I said, true, true. I'm not as
Yeah.
patient as Trent is. So,
Well, she's
but
your
he did.
mama. She's got to be honest. So
Yep, that's right.
that's
That's right.
awesome.
He did a great job though. So I'm very thankful for them.
That's awesome. Josh, one last piece of advice for our listeners based on anything and everything we talked about today.
One more piece of advice. So there's a lot of stuff in your life that you can delegate.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff in your business that you can delegate. Um, whether it's you can hand accounts off to junior producers, you can
Mm-hmm.
hire account executives. There's all that kind of stuff. But there's two things in this life that you one of them you can't delegate, and then the other one you shouldn't delegate. Okay. So the one that you shouldn't delegate is being a husband to your wife,
Mm.
right? You shouldn't delegate that one.
Yeah.
Nobody can do that job but you. Um, and the second one is that you can't delegate your relationship with your children.
Mm.
Um, they only get one uh, biological parent, right, of each gender, and so I just feel like that's something that I can't delegate. Nobody can do that job as a father but me, and I take it serious. That's why I write on here, or one of my 10 greatest happenings from last year was I didn't delegate the things that are the most important to me. Because I believe that sometimes, to your point about finite and infinite,
Yeah.
like it's not always about what you do, but who you raise sometimes.
Yeah.
And so for me, uh, I just think that whether you're starting out or whether you've been doing this a long time, like just don't try to delegate those things. I think you got to retain that, uh, and keep that time really precious to you.
That's awesome, man. That is more important than I think a lot of people think. And it doesn't, it has everything to do with business too, because we can let that get away from us so easily, especially, on days like today where you're home, I'm home, and, we got kids that need us and depend on us. That's very, very wise advice. Um, I got one last surprise question for you. It's
All
kind of
right.
cold. Now, granted, it may not be as cold south of Macon as it is up here in the frozen metro Atlanta
Mm,
north. But on a
mm.
chillier day like today, would you rather have a hot bowl of soup or some gourmet marshmallows with hot chocolate?
I would rather have a hot bowl of soup, honestly. I'm not that big of a sweets guy.
Yeah.
No, not that big of it. What does that say about me? Anything?
You're
Is that like
salty,
a
you're not
psychological?
sweet.
Well, that's if you spend anybody that spends time getting to know me would know that that's the truth.
I love my wife, but I still call her a salty New Englander. She's from Rhode Island, so
Yeah.
and she usually agrees. What's your favorite kind of soup? What do you love?
Uh, either chicken noodle or tomato bisque.
Oh heck yeah!
Yeah.
Well, I am excited to send you a package from Spoonful of Comfort, which is a company that makes amazing homemade soups. And there's some goodies in there for you. We gave it to our staff last year in lieu of having an in-person employee appreciation brunch during COVID, and it's fantastic. So I'll stick around. I'll get your address off air, and we'll send you some either chicken noodle or tomato bisque. But you're gonna love it, man.
Awesome. Well, and hey, I promise, I know this is mostly a, audio thing, but I promise you, the next time we do this, my wall is going to be full of stuff. All right. I've been waiting on chairs. I've been waiting on office furniture. We just built we just built this house and we moved into it in March
Oh,
of
well.
last year. So I've been waiting for months to get furniture in. So right now the only thing in here is a chair that's came from my kitchen table and the Peloton back there. So I've got a bunch of artwork in the closet. So I'm just waiting, literally waiting on everything to show up. So I don't want your listeners to, or anybody that's watching this, to think like, this guy, does he not have anything on his wall? But
Listen, you
that's just
just
where
have
I'm
to
at, man.
you have to commit to me that the next time we record an episode, you'll do it riding your Peloton.
I would love that.
Okay,
I would
I'm
love
gonna
that.
mark down the day and the time, and I'm gonna tell you what. In true Josh Gurley fashion, I'm going to call you on such and such a date,
Yeah.
and we will make this happen. Yeah, as I mentioned to you off air before, I feel your pain. We ordered a stove and a slash oven literally a year ago, and it's about to be delivered in 2 days because we
Wow.
decided to redo our kitchen. But I feel you, man. That's not having all the furniture. It's not
Yeah.
easy. It's not easy. So,
No,
well,
it's
listen,
not, man.
man, this has been absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate you spending some of your valuable time with me and with our listeners and viewers. I think they're going to get a lot out of this. The long game, man. There's a lot to be said for all the wonderful, meaningful reasons to be in this age, in this industry, which, by the way, is God's greatest industry on earth.
Well, that's what Jason Cass says. Yeah.
Right.
The
I know.
greatest industry God ever created.
That's right. I knew it was something like that. We were supposed to
Yeah.
record an episode last week, but he got sick, so we got to reschedule.
Very
Everybody I know
cool.
right now is dropping like flies from Omicron, but we'll get through it. We'll get through it. Josh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Stick around for me for a second, but for everybody else, grow big or go home. Until next time, friends, be well.